We got media day tomorrow.
I'm excited. Excited for media day. There was a kid in the barbershop earlier this week. We were talking about the start of the NBA season, and I was like, yeah, we're just a few days away. He's like, he tells me the exact date of when preseason starts. I'm like, dude, listen up, little kid. I'm talking about media day. He's like, oh, no, but they don't play until this time. I'm like, dude, you're lucky you're 11, or we'd be taking outside. You're lucky you're a young kid. Did you have any? Oh, go on. My bad. You're about to say something.
I didn't know you were going to square up with the 10-year-old. Jesus Christ, dude.
I'll do it. I got no problem with it, bro. No, I'll shake his hand in front of his mom. No problem with it.
Good Lord. No, I don't really have anything to say, but we do have some clips that we're going to play about Cameron Johnson, who you guys know. Me and Lance thought he's a Detroit Piston this summer. Man, we look like fucking jackasses, by the way. We looked like jackasses. We're like, yeah, Pistons are going after Cameron Johnson. But Cam Johnson was on Old Man of the Three, which is JJ Redick's podcast, and he was talking about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. We're going to play this first clip of him talking about both of them.
Every year, you guys get ready for training camp. There's a select team, and there's a week of scrimmages and games between the select team and the senior national team. Were there any young guys that stood out to you during that run against the select team?
I like the group total. I think there's a lot of young talent on that team. Cade Cunningham played really well.
Yeah.
Jalen Duren played really well. And, you know, I think somebody like a Jalen Williams is just like, he wasn't doing anything spectacular, but he's so solid, skilled, you know, understands the game really well for being young in his career. So those guys did a really good job to me.
Is it weird to you that a guy that we were told by beat reporters, we were told by media that Cam Johnson to the Detroit Pistons was going to happen, and then he's like hyping up Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren? Does that kind of like piss you off a little bit as a fan?
I mean, I wouldn't say it makes me mad, but it makes me disappointed because he definitely has the game where I wouldn't say it would flourish next to Cade and Duren, but it would open things up for them. Like, he would be a great piece to play alongside Cade and Duren. He would definitely open things up. And listening to that clip, you almost hear just a tiny bit of disappointment where he's like, I wish I would have signed a contract with Detroit. Like, you can kind of hear just a little bit where he's like, you know, dude, playing with Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, it might make my life a little easier. I mean, I know he's in a great situation in Brooklyn, but when you're kind of like one of those, you're not in your 30s yet, but you've been a veteran in the NBA for a little while, and you start to notice up-and-coming talent, and if you have an opportunity to play with them, you're like, man, damn, we might have been able to do some things. Because as a basketball fan, I think all of us could really say, like, we don't think the Brooklyn Nets, even though they're a fun team to watch, we don't think they're winning anything anytime soon with the current group. But if you're a guy like Cam Johnson, you might be like, damn, dude, I could have really played with these young guys and it would have been pretty sweet for a few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Brooklyn's a fun team. I think they'll make a chance at a playing spot. I think that they have the talent to do that with Mikal Bridges and, you know, those guys over there, and they're a very well coached team. But when I heard that clip, man, he's like hyping up like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jalen Williams, by the way, that plays for OKC. I'm just like, man, like, it kind of pisses me off about the Joe Harris trade a little bit. And I know Joe Harris is a great player, but it's like, if the Pistons don't trade for Joe Harris, Brooklyn didn't have the cap space to sign Cam Johnson long term. It's just like, we helped Brooklyn sign Cam Johnson. And that, I always think about that in the back of my head, but that's just my 2 cents on it. I love the fact that he's hyping up Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. There is one more clip, though, of him talking about Cade Cunningham and what Pistons fans should expect out of him this upcoming season.
On one team.
Yeah, right. Pistons are in good – with Coach Mon over there, they're in good hands.
What would you – on Cade for a second, just because I feel like we haven't really gotten to see him because of the health stuff.
Right.
How would you describe him right now we have a lot of Piston fans who like the show. Like, what should they be looking forward to?
I think he's going to have a very solid control of games because he's a big-bodied point guard that's able to get to his spots. And I think that's what he's refining as time goes on, is just not being able to be sped up, controlling the flow of the game, getting to his spots, being able to score, being able to distribute. And that's the challenge he posed. You know, you put somebody smaller on him, and he's definitely going to be able to just kind of get to wherever he wants on the court. You know, so he looked pretty good in those scrimmages.
Again, man, like a little part of me inside is dead after hearing that.
It's funny though, like we're all saying the same thing about Cade Cunningham, about his game. We're all noticing it, and a few of us have noticed it from the beginning, how he would, you know, like the strengths of his game and how it would apply to an NBA game. And it's nice to hear it from Cam Johnson, because he's reaffirming what a lot of us are thinking, like this is how Cade's going to take the next step, and just, you know, he's a guy that's going to control the game, control the pace, get to his spots. He's going to be able to score over smaller guards, be able to do his thing against bigger guards. It's just nice to hear that an NBA player is complimenting him, but also just really repeating what we've all been saying about him all off season once we started to hear the news coming out from the Team USA practices. But yeah, dude, I don't want to be sour on Joe Harris, dude. So don't make me.
I know. It's just like, if you think about it though, it's like Brooklyn at the time did not have cap space to sign him to that big contract. And then Troy Weaver's like, hey, let me help you out there. We'll take on that $19 million for a year to help you guys out. It's just like, man, you better shoot like 50% from free. That's all I'm saying as a fan. But I know he's not going to. It's just like, they're big, like, this is like completely off topic with like the Cam Johnson stuff, but like Joe Harris, I've heard from beat reporters, I've seen like depth charts from articles, like they don't even have him like cracking a 10-man rotation, man. Like, why trade for a guy if you're not going to play him?
See, there's a part of me too, now that we're talking about it, it makes me think like Troy Weaver brought on Joe Harris so Brooklyn could sign Cam Johnson to that contract, because he knows, okay, Brooklyn in 2 years, when we're ready to compete, they're not a threat to us. I help them out now, but long term, they're going to be worse off because they signed him to a bigger contract and they got all of these. I think the jury's still out on Mikal Bridges if he's like a bona fide number one franchise player. But if you look at it, they're kind of constructed in a way like how much of us thought like the going to work squad was, where you didn't have a true number one. You just had a bunch of really good players, but they're still missing that one, like they're still missing that one superstar piece. And the one superstar I've always brought back to the going to work squad was Ben Wallace, because he was a superstar on defense and he was basically the franchise player and how they were built around. I think Brooklyn's still missing that piece. But again, I think it's more of like a 4D chess move, I guess, from Troy Weaver, where, you know, you're going to be good for the next 2-3 seasons, but when Detroit's ready to compete, you're not going to be a threat to us when we're ready to contend. That's kind of how that's at least going to make me feel better about not getting Cam Johnson and trading for Joe Harris. So I'm just going to think about it that way.
Yeah. Like, I hope Joe Harris plays. I really do. Like, maybe these beat reporters are wrong. Maybe I'm reading too much into their articles because it's summer and they have to write content. But like, I just kind of found it interesting that they didn't even have him like in a rotation. Like I said, we'll have media day tomorrow, so we'll probably have so much freaking content for, you know, next week's podcast. Maybe we do an emergency podcast. Who knows? You never know. You never know, man. Like, it's just I can't wait for the season. I love the fact though that a Piston, a non-Piston, I should say, in Cam Johnson was talking positively about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. Like, he didn't have to. He could have named anyone on that select team. He could have said Jalen Green. He could have said he could have said basically anybody. But first name that came out of his mouth was Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, but if he had mentioned anybody else other than Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, we'd be having a different conversation. Like, talking about these guys, did he forget what Cade did to him in practice? Come on, Cam Johnson. Yeah. Isaiah Livers will be out 6 to 8 weeks, man. This is news, comes from Sean Murphy and his sources. I'm just going to say, I feel bad for Isaiah Livers, dude. The dude cannot catch a break. It sucks. It hurts. It hurts me personally because there's something I've been able to root for Derek Jeter, Greg Jennings, Jerome Harrison for a short period of time. And I mentioned Jerome Harrison because I think he had like 296 yards in an NFL game. It was unreal. All those guys are from Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's fun to root for them. But for me personally, being able to root for a basketball player playing for my favorite NBA team that comes from the city of Kalamazoo, that was something special. And it seems like that is almost over right now. And again, I feel bad for Isaiah Livers for putting in all this work into the offseason, doing everything he can, and then he just continues to have minor setbacks after setback after setback. And I hate to say this. I hate to say what I'm about to say next, but it feels like Isaiah Livers' time, not only as a Detroit Piston, but as an NBA player, it feels like that window is starting. It might be slammed shut here soon just because of the injuries. It's not about talent. It's not about ability. It's just about the injuries. And I hope whether it's with the Pistons or another team, he can just stay healthy and put together a long NBA career. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
So I talked about this over on a TikTok this week, and I want to be a little bit more positive because that literally sounds like a eulogy for your favorite player.
Dude,
I know how much you love Isaiah Livers. I want people to really hyper focus on the word could be. He could be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Could be a shorter term injury. There's not really a whole lot of information of the severity of the injury. We don't really know. We don't know if it's his ankle again. We don't know if it's his back. We just don't know yet. We'll probably find out tomorrow during media day what the severity of that injury is. If the Pistons do want to leak that out, if they don't, I guess we have to wait until we get that Pistons PR tweet. It seems like at 2 a.m. all the time. But I want people to try to stay positive. I think the word you should really focus on is he could be out for 6 to 8 weeks. We don't know. To your point, I think you're right. If you can't stay healthy, then you don't have a future on a basketball team. And it seems like every injury he's had since the Pistons drafted him out of Michigan University, it's just been like little ticky-tack injuries. It hasn't been anything serious. But I think for the price point that you have, Matt, it doesn't hurt to have him on your team. Because if you're paying him $15 million, let's say, and he's always injured, then I would have a problem with it. If you look at his contract, he's under $5 million. He's not, hogging a lot of your cap space. So if he's injured, okay, he's in street clothes for, less than, I think his contract's, $1 million or maybe $2 million. I don't know the exact number, but I'm not like too worried about it because that means you're going to have more playing time for Asar Thompson. You're going to have more playing time, hopefully, for Joe Harris. So maybe that Joe Harris trade actually is kind of a blessing in disguise for Isaiah Livers. But I'm not too surprised that he did get injured. It is disappointing. I know how much you love him as a player. It feels like you mention him at least once a week on the podcast, and I absolutely love that. But I'm just praying for him. I hope he can recover fast because he's a player. I think that he had he would have a lot of opportunities under Coach Monty Williams. I think they could play him as small forward. They could play him in power forward if they wanted to. He's a guy that has such a pretty jump shot. I think defensively he has upside, moves his feet really well. But like I said, I wish him a speedy recovery, and I want to see every player on this roster be healthy because it sucks being injured. If you played sports at any type of level, being injured sucks. You just want to get out there and compete with your guys out there. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Hopefully he's not out for that full 6 to 8 weeks, and maybe we could see him, playing some meaningful minutes with the Pistons.
I mean, it's nice that it happened in the offseason, and we're still like a week or 2 away from training camp, or maybe 9 days, I think. Maybe it's a week. I'm not sure, but training camp is soon. So, I mean, I guess the silver lining or the upside to it all is at least it happened in the offseason and still gives him a couple weeks to get that whatever's hurt. I'm not sure if it's an ankle or if it's his back. I'm not sure what it is, but whatever it is, it gives him an opportunity. And man, he does have the skill set and the size really to be a 3 or a 4. If he could just stay healthy, he would have a long NBA career. And that's really what I want for him. I mean, I still think I'm with you. I think this year he'll still be on the Pistons because he's only set to make 1.8 million, which is that's as fair as a contract as you can find. Almost seems like it's just crazy how cheap he is. But if he could just figure it out, he'd be all right. But it is what it is. So I'm just gonna leave it.
I do want to say we did get a comment on YouTube from France saying that training camp for the Pistons starts Tuesday.
Oh, starts Tuesday.
So yeah, I think we have our first preseason game actually next week. So
it's been what I'm thinking about. My bad.
Yeah, it's okay, man. It's Sunday. It's late. It's 8:00. I get it. We make mistakes. We're not perfect here. So if you guys are going to correct us, we do appreciate that. But I think everything you said is spot on with him, though.
Yeah. We have Gabriele Procida news. So this is pretty exciting. I mean, just so you know, we're going to brighten you guys up a little bit. Now, he won't be playing in Detroit next year, so sorry about that. But he'll be staying put in Europe. I know a lot of us want to see him play in the NBA. I am very excited. If you've been a longtime follower of this podcast, you know my scenario. Pistons they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. They need some more firepower offensively off the bench. Gabriele Procida leaves the plane wearing his country's flag, and he's the missing piece to a contention off the bench, a la Tony Kukoc. Here's the thing, though. There's still, even though he's going to be playing overseas, and I doubt he comes over next offseason, don't fret. A lot of European players, a lot of foreign players have came over late. I'm going to give you guys a short list of guys to brighten your day. Manu Ginobili, 25 years old when he made his NBA debut. Drazen Petrovic, 25. Arvydas Sabonis was 31. Luis Scola, he was a solid player for many years for the Houston Rockets. He was 27. Marc Gasol was 24. Jose Calderon was 24. Rudy Fernandez was 23. And our very own Bojan Bogdanovic was 25. So you guys get the idea. It's just because they haven't signed with the team yet and they're not over here in training camp does not mean all hope is lost with these guys. They sometimes take a little bit of time. Not everybody can be a Luka Doncic or a Nikola Jokic or, wow, I always butcher his name every freaking weekend. Jeez. But anyways, you guys get the idea. Not everybody can be a stud like those guys. They take a little bit of time. So let's still hold out hope for Gabriele Procida. But what are your thoughts on this news, Anthony?
Not really too surprised. Saw that he had broke the news on his Instagram that he's going back overseas to play another season over in the EuroLeague. I think for him it's needed. If you watched him during the FIBA World Cup with Team Italy, there's potential there, but he's so raw as a prospect. And I know some Pistons fans, Everett watching on our Facebook page right now says, I've never heard of Gabriele Procida. He was drafted in the same draft class as Jaden Ivey, I want to say, in the second round. And it was a draft and stash. I think more people remember this draft pick because Jaden Hardy was right there. We didn't draft him. They kind of just don't know who Gabriele Procida is, and that's fine. He for people that don't know, he's a shooting guard, small forward. I think he's 6'5", really athletic, but just like offensively, it's just not there. I think he has the potential to put it all together, but he's only 21 years old. I think there's just not room for him on this basketball team right now, because if you look at that guard position, we have a lot of guards on this basketball team. And even if he was on the Pistons, he most likely would probably be fighting for a spot even for the Motor City Cruises G League team, because they're very guard heavy too. So I think him spending time over in the EuroLeague will be great for his development. Maybe we can see him next season, 2025. I would be very hopeful for that. Maybe it's just hard for me. I'm hoping we can see him in 2025, but I won't be surprised if this is another European draft pick that the Pistons draft and it just doesn't pan out. Like, he could be another Davidas Servitas, That's another draft and stash guy. Like, Servitas is still playing in the G League. Last time I checked, he was playing for the Pacers affiliate, and he still hasn't really cracked the NBA rotation. But we're going to have to wait and see what does happen with Gabriele Procida. But if I was a Piston fan, I wouldn't really bank on him like Lance's dream, saving the Pistons, quote unquote. But hey, I could be wrong. Lance could be right with over there just like trying to think of what those things are called. I don't know, man. I'm fucking tired as hell.
No, you're good. You're good. He was part of the Jaden Ivey draft, and they do list him at 6'7", though. He has some good height. I think you and I have compared him to Mario and Noza with the athletic ability, because he is a good athlete at that 2-guard spot. I mean, there are some clips out there. I forget what Pistons account has shared those videos or those highlights, and he has thrown it down on a couple people. But you're right. He's only 21 years old. I'm just telling people, like, there's still an opportunity. It might take 4 years. He might not come over till he's 25, but there have been I just gave you a list of guys that came over in their mid 20s that still had long, productive NBA careers that were very good in the NBA. And, I mean, there's still a chance for Gabriele Procida, man. I mean, anytime you have that size, that length, and you're a good athlete, you're going to get an opportunity. It's just, there are some things he needs to work on his game, but he's 21 years old. It's no big deal.
Before we do move on, we actually had a Piston fan over in Italy that has watched Gabriele Procida, and we had posted a graphic of him, spending he's going to spend this season over in the EuroLeague, and I'm trying to find his comment. Let's see if I can find it really quick on our Facebook page. I meant to put it in there because I found it really interesting from an Italian fan's perspective. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
I love that we have fans all over the world, man. It's so cool, man. That is just the coolest thing. Thank you guys all just for watching this podcast weekly, wherever you guys sit right now. It's pretty sweet.
Okay, so this comes from Marco Caldrino. I apologize if I am butchering your name, but he's a Piston fan in Italy. He said, I've seen Gabriele Procida play. He is for sure not ready. He could be ready for the 6th to 7th roster play by 2026 if he's lucky. There's a lot with him that when you watch him, it doesn't make sense. He has more lowlights than he has highlights. Hope him the best for the Pistons, though.
Damn. I'm still holding out. I'm still holding out.
Yeah.
For all I know, that guy could be really jealous. Like, his career didn't turn out that way. And just talking crap about Gabriele Procida, being like, yeah, he kind of sucks. We were in youth group together and he made fun of me. I'm kidding. Great analysis from our guy.
like I said, man, I'm not banking on Procida to be the next Luka Doncic on the Pistons. If he contributes and he plays any type of meaningful basketball, I'll just take everything I said back about him. But I just don't see it.
Man, I just want him to be Rudy Fernandez. That's all. Give me Rudy Fernandez. That'd be sweet. Yeah. Dunking on Dwight Howard in the Olympics. It'd be awesome.
I mean, last European that did anything for the Pistons was Mehmet Okur, but it's going way back.
Hey, Walter Herman had his moments.
I mean, meaningful basketball.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Now, let's see what pick we're gonna get this year.
Carlos Delfino, he had a cup of coffee with the Detroit Pistons too. He was fun too. The other Italian, was he Italian or was he I thought Carlos was Italian.
I think it was Venezuelan or something like that.
All right, so James Wiseman is up for a contract extension. It looks like the Detroit Pistons will wait and see how he performs before they make a decision. Bleacher Report compared James Wiseman to Jonathan Isaac. His Detroit numbers are very similar. You can look that up for yourself to Jonathan Isaac's. Jonathan Isaac signed a 4-year extension worth $69 to $80 million, which would be roughly 15.5 to 17.9% of the salary cap, which in my opinion is way too much to commit to James Wiseman. Now, I might be getting this part wrong, but I believe now that the salary cap has gone up, if you were to compare if Jonathan Isaac were to sign a contract extension with today's salary cap, it'd be roughly 22 to 25 million, I think is what they were saying, which would be not starter money. But I like the Detroit Pistons. If it is a true wait and see approach, I'm glad they're doing it with this James Wiseman and not just throwing the money and the extension at him too quickly. So, but what are your thoughts? What do you want to see from James Wiseman for him to earn that extension this year?
I think the Pistons are very smart for not doing this. And I think anyone watching, It's probably like, duh, of course they're not going to give James Wiseman an extension. Why the hell would they? I think when you look at him, it's very hard to judge if you're the Pistons contract-wise. What should we give him? Is he part of this long-term future? You just haven't really seen enough of James Wiseman to commit any type of money, even a veteran's minimum. You just haven't seen enough. I think this year the Pistons are going to give him just opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to see, can this be Jalen Duren's backup for the long-term future? Because I think that's what his role is going to be on this team. I don't see James Wiseman and Jalen Duren starting like they did in Summer League. I don't. I think if Jalen Duren can come off your bench and give you a good, let's say 12-6, maybe 13-8 a night as a backup for Jalen Duren, I think most Pistons fans would be very happy. I think you would be happy too. But trying to give him an extension this year doesn't make any sense. You're going to have to just see what he can do this season, see if he can stay healthy, because he's another player on this roster that has had his injury woes throughout his early NBA career. I think this year he just completed his 82 games in a 3-season period. So it kind of gives you everything you need to know about him injury-wise with him. But if he can stay healthy, he can put it together. I think him as a backup behind Duren, I would love it. But, I do see some Pistons fans that, they're not the most diehard fan. Maybe they're more of a casual Piston fan. They're like, I don't get why you trade for Wiseman when you have Duren. I don't want him to stunt Duren's growth. I think the Pistons understand that Jalen Duren is a franchise center. They really do. Yeah. But I think Troy Weaver and company, they're very high on Wiseman, and they think he could be a backup center on this team long term. It's just they're going to have to evaluate him this season to see if they're willing to extend him, and they're willing to invest long-term money to a guy that has had his injury woes and stuff like that. But I think a question I have for you is, let's say he does put it together this season. Let's say he puts up 12-6 and he's efficient, blocks a few shots. What's the number you're willing to give him? Like, are you willing to give him what he's currently making right now, which is around 12 to 13 million, or would you pass on that?
It's not so much about the stats. And by the way, it is 84 games exactly that he's played with 49 starts. So you were right there with your guesstimate. But like, it's not necessarily so much as numbers, because last year he averaged 13-8 with 0.8 block. I'm looking at the numbers right now, shooting 53% from the field. That was with 24 games, 22 starts with the Pistons, and just under 26 minutes. Again, it's not about the numbers, but if he could come in and average like 9-6, but contribute to winning basketball, I'd be willing to give him $12 million a year, because I think that size, that athleticism, taking a role off the bench, being a piece, and forgetting individual stuff, but being piece to like a larger, being part of like the team in a larger way, if that makes sense. By sacrificing, I'd be willing to give him $12 million, but it has to contribute to winning. I don't care about. I hate the term empty stats, because guys have to put up numbers regardless. But if you're going to give me 13-8 a game, but we're still a 17-win team, it doesn't make sense for me to throw money at you. You're just a talented guy putting up numbers that are meaningless. But if you can give me 9-10 a night with like 6 or 7 rebounds, but you're winning, you're playing winning basketball. You're playing within the flow of the team. You're not getting tunnel vision on offense. You're giving effort defensively. You're giving effort on the boards. I would be happy with the Pistons giving them the Marvin Bagley contract. That's not bad, but it has to contribute to winning. It can't be empty stats. It can't be tunnel vision, playing out of the offense. It can't be any of that crap. Play winning basketball, make winning plays. Then you get your money, man. And I don't care about the numbers. Just play winning basketball.
Yeah, I think that's like my thing with Wiseman right now is I think there's a majority of fans that want to see him succeed. Yeah. They do. There's the Wiseman flock out there that They want him to succeed because, he kind of got a raw deal in Golden State, obviously with Steve Kerr and those guys over there, but he's got every opportunity to carve a role on this basketball team because this is still a young team and no one has earned their spot in the rotation.
Yeah.
Especially off the bench. I think the only players I could really say that has earned their spot in the rotation is Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Bojan. Everything else, you got to earn. And I think he has a great opportunity to try to earn his spot in this rotation night in and night out. He's got all the talent in the world being a number 2 overall pick. He's got, touch around the rim. He's shown you that he can hit a mid-range. Saw a little bit of passing in the summer league. He can stretch out. He can, knock down a 3-point shot. It's just, he just needs more reps. And I think he'll get it this season. It's to kind of piggyback of what you said. If he goes out and he's giving you 9 and 6 and he's playing winning basketball, he's blocking shots, he's, contributing to where you feel comfortable for him as a backup on this team, then yeah, I probably would feel comfortable too, giving him around that 12 to maybe $13 million range if he's willing to accept it. But, he just has to stay healthy. He has to show this team and this organization that he's willing to put in the work and get better. And I think he is. I think he's one guy that I've heard repetitively from media members, from, people that work for the Pistons, that James Wiseman's working out around 4 times a day.
Wow.
He hasn't really left the facility. A buddy of mine sent me a picture. He ran into him at Somerset Mall. He said he lost 30 pounds this offseason. He slimmed down a lot. He's putting in the work. He knows that this is a huge opportunity for him. So I think that the sky's the limit for the kid. It's just, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to continue to put in that work each and every day. And I think if he does, he's going to have a spot in this rotation, and possibly the Pistons will reward him with a new contract.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not paying him more than Isaiah Stewart. If people hate the Isaiah Stewart contract, and Isaiah Stewart is a better player than James Wiseman, doesn't have the ceiling of a James Wiseman, because James Wiseman's a freak at 7'1", being able to run the floor like that, being able to jump out the gym. But if they were going to give him more money than Isaiah Stewart, I'd have a problem with it. But $12 million a year, if you can contribute to winning basketball, that's fine. And I think that would almost be a bargain for a guy with his physical tools. There is a small part of me, though, and I don't know if you're thinking the same way, where I'm still holding out hope that he really plays like the number 2 overall pick and Troy Weaver just looks like a genius, because I've shared this highlight on this podcast so many times. You know what I'm about to say, where he gets the rebound and just pushes it up the floor, and everybody's standing around dude, what the hell are we looking at? Look at this guy. He's a giant running the floor with the ball, and then he dumps it off to Jalen Duren, and you're like, holy crap. If these two could make it work and they could both just figure it out, you have a legit twin towers that are athletic enough to switch defensively, athletic enough to keep up with everybody offensively, and you're not missing a beat. You don't have to play small ball. You can play small ball with 2 7-footers. That would just be insane. But that's still like a pipe. But I'm holding out hope for that. But like I said, James Wiseman, just play winning basketball and you'll get rewarded, man. I'm happy to hear that he's working out all the time, though.
Yeah, because I have some people, or I should say some friends, that do work for the Pistons organization, whether guys that take pictures for the team, entertainment. This kid is just working his ass off. He's in the practice facility, the Henry Ford practice facility, at least 3 times a day, since the season ended. So he's put in a lot of extra work, working on his post moves, mid-range, conditioning, getting better at moving his feet, defensively, working on his rebounds. So he's serious. He's really working. And I think that's all Pistons fans really ask for, is if you're in the gym like he is, that's all fans really care about. If you're willing to put in the work and get better, you're not going to hear anything from fans.
Yeah.
If you're doing your job, we're not going to go on Twitter and say trade this guy. He doesn't care. As long as you put in the work, I think most fans are happy with you as a player.
Oh, 100%. 100%. All right, let's move on to these topics. I know we've talked about offseason grades on a much earlier podcast. It was way too early to do that. We had rose-colored glasses on. We were looking at the Asar Thompson Summer League highlights and be like, A+, A+, A+. What a great offseason. Can't believe they found this guy with the 5th pick. Just incredible. But let's get into this because the 2023-24 season is upon us. Now that the dust has settled, the roster is pretty much set going into the season. How would you grade this offseason for the Pistons? I have my answer. If you want, I can drop it right now, and I'm going to do it. It's a B+. Now, if we were just to exclude the draft, or I mean, if we were excluding the draft or excluding the trades he made, I would give it a B-. I think that if you combine the draft and what he did with trades and, I guess doing with the cap season, it goes up a little bit. I mean, some people might argue that it would probably be a B-, like I think I already said. But what is your grade? I'll get into why I gave it a B+ here in a second after I hear your answer.
So I think when you give off-season grades, you need to do not only the NBA draft, but you also need to account in free agency in the moves you made.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the draft. Just a quick recap. They get Asar Thompson at 5, which I think most Pistons fans are extremely excited for. He's exactly what you need at that small forward position. He can guard multiple positions. He can pass the basketball. Only thing we've really talked about is can that 3-point shot translate to the next level? I think it will. So I think the draft pick was amazing.
Yeah.
You go up and you go get Marcus Sasser with the 25th pick. You trade with the Celtics. And he's a guy that I think a lot of fans are very excited about. Don't really see too many Pistons fans talking about him too much, but I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. So I thought the draft as a whole was a good draft. I gave it a B+. Free agency, this is where I think fans get pissed because it seems like every year we're like, oh, we got all this cap space. We're going to sign all these big name free agents. And Troy Weaver has done this since he's gotten here. He uses his cap space and trades, right?
Yeah.
You trade for Joe Harris, which used $18 million of your cap space. And at that time, I was not too happy with that trade. I gave it like a C-, just because I thought that they were going to go Big Gabe hunting. I thought they were going to go get that Cam Johnson. I really did. I thought they were going to go get a difference maker out there. We were told we had James Edwards on this podcast a couple times last year, and he said, don't be surprised if they go and get Jerami Grant or Cam Johnson or a wing like that. And they didn't do that, right? They didn't do any of that. So Joe Harris tried to give it like a C- because I just didn't understand it. Then you go and get your guy, Monte Morris.
Yep.
For his 2nd round pick. And the Wizards were trying to save cap space. They didn't want to have him on the roster. I gave that move an A+. And the reason why I gave it an A+ is because you just got one of the best backup point guards for 1 year that does not turn the ball over. He averaged the same assists or the same stats as Killian Hayes, but he was way more efficient. If you look at their stats, they're identical, but Monte Morris was way more efficient. So you look at that move. I gave it an A. I gave Joe Harris a C. I think the offseason, I'm giving Troy like a B-.
Okay.
I thought the Monte Morris trade was phenomenal. I thought the Joe Harris trade, I was like, okay. If he pans out, great. Another veteran, another 40%, 3-point shooter, cool. But I don't think the off season's over either, dude. I still think that there's a trade out there. I just don't know who's it going to be. We talked about it. Is it going to be Bagley? Is it going to be Killian? I think they make one more move before the season does start. But as of right now, as we're recording this on October 1st, I'm giving Troy Weaver a B- for this offseason. I love the draft. I was kind of underwhelmed with free agency. But I think I got too hyped reading all these articles from the Athletic, from the Free Press, from national media telling us that we're, going big game hunting for all these free agents, and we don't do that. If Troy signs someone going into next summer, I will be fucking shocked. I really will. I will, man. Like if he signs somebody to like a big contract, I will be shocked. I was like, what the hell? He didn't trade for somebody. He always has me thinking, but I think overall B-. I think you said B- too.
Well, I said B+, and I'm an idiot because I don't know why I said excluding the draft. Let me just break this down. I thought the draft was an A. And because I thought, getting Asar, even though I was not happy going into the draft. I mean, after I saw the highlights and checked out a few more things about him and watched Summer League, I'm like, whew, man, this kid's a player. And then going out and getting Marcus Nasser, who I do not think would be there at 32. I don't think he would have been available in the second round. I think he would have been picked up by probably like the Boston Celtics or something. But I think the draft was an A. I gave the offseason a B- just because Monty Morris is going to be such a huge contributor to this team. You already said it. Like he's probably the best backup point guard in the NBA. 10 points, 5 assists, 1 turnover, and that's a career high for him. It's unreal. Like the guy just plays smart basketball. I didn't hate the Joe Harris move because I think even though Joe Harris did play, I think 73 games last year, he was a little banged up. When he's healthy and the shot is falling, he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. And yeah, he's not a great defender. He's probably not even a good defender, but he's a capable defender. He can also put the ball on the ground a little bit when people close out on him. Like he's a little bit better than people are giving him credit for. And I think where most people get soured is I think if we didn't have those reports about Cam Johnson or some other big name free agents, we'd probably look at the Joe Harris trade a little bit differently, or we'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. And now that Isaiah Livers is hurt, you kind of understand why you brought in a Joe Harris. Because even though I think both you and I assumed that Isaiah Livers would be the guy getting the rotation minutes and Joe Harris might have been out of it, I would much rather have Joe Harris being the 10th, 11th man sitting on the bench getting did not plays versus like a Jamarco Pickett. Because if an Isaiah Livers or a Bojan goes out, now you're forced to play Jamarco Pickett, but now we're actually going to be forced to play Joe Harris, who is a much better basketball player than Jamarco Pickett. That's why you have veterans on your team like that. Even though the $19 million a year is a lot for an emergency option, I'd rather have Joe Harris at 19 as an emergency option than Jamarco Pickett or some guy in his level of play, which is basically like 1 foot in the NBA, like a foot and a half in the G League. But yeah, so I would say a B+. It will be an A for me if he can trade Killian Hayes, though. If he could pull that off, it'd be crazy. But yeah, those are my grades in the offseason. I know I just kind of gave a huge rundown of everything. Hopefully you guys forget the first half of that conversation with me talking before he does and just listen to the second half. But yeah, it was a B+ for me overall with the offseason because the draft picks, Monte Morris, and now Joe Harris, who it looks like he's going to be playing because Isaiah Livers is out, or could be out. So I have
a question.
Okay.
When did we sign Jamarco Pickett?
No. I know we didn't sign him. I'm just he's always the name I bring up because I remember how hype a lot of Pistons fans were about him. And I'm like, why are we getting excited about this guy? Like he is a G League player. He has no real future in the NBA. But what I was getting at is it's nice to have an actual NBA player as the 10th, 11th, 12th man.
I got you.
Like having a bunch of G League guys sitting on the bench that we know have no future in the NBA. I was just using an example.
It's funny. He just got traded again not too long ago. He got traded from Cleveland's affiliate team to the Grand Rapids Gold. So he's going to be playing in Michigan in the Grand Rapids area. So shout out to Jamarco Pickett. But
I'm going to have to go check out a Gold game just to see Jamarco Pickett again. Dude had a ton of talent, being 6'9", a lefty, could shoot it, could play a little defense. He's super inconsistent. And when you don't have like an elite skill, but you're inconsistent, you're either overseas or you're in the G League, man. Like I'm just going to be straight up with everybody. But those days are long gone.
Yeah, like I said, I think we addressed a lot of needs.
Yeah.
This offseason. You got that small forward and you upgraded the backup point guard spot. So I think a B minus is a fair grade from both of us.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's talk about this Hoops Hype list. We got another list for you guys because, we love lists on this podcast. And Hoops Hype dropped the list of the best 24 centers in the NBA. One name was excluded, and that was Jalen Duren. Doesn't surprise me, though. His rookie season was great to good, depending on who you ask. If you ask me, it was a good offseason with a lot of flashes of potential. It was a good season with a lot of flashes of potential. I would like to know what the criteria is for the list, and I want to know why Hoops Hype didn't throw on Anthony Davis, because I know people think he plays power forward, but according to Basketball Reference, all 1,900 minutes of his last season were played at the center position. So I don't know why they left Anthony Davis on there. And I know what we're going to talk about here in a second, but I'm going to beat you to the punch, Anthony. Why do they have Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren on the list at 6 and 14 when they have not played a single NBA minute?
So let me look at the list because I know I put it in the prep sheet, but I haven't actually looked at the full list. So let me skim through it real quick. Doesn't surprise me.
I mean, it's a solid list of centers, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the as I'm just scrolling, I think Walker Kessler should be higher. That's just me, but Jokic Pertl, come on, you just lost credibility putting Jokic Pertl in there. Chet Holmgren, I don't get mad at Chet Holmgren being in this list. I would be mad if he was top 10 or top 5. You can put someone in a list if they haven't played NBA minutes and you're explaining that, okay, he had a really good summer league and we think he can do this. But if you put when we see Bleacher Report put Victor Wembanyama number 1, then that's where it's just yeah, dude, come on, stop it.
Have you looked at the list all the way? Because he's number 6.
Yeah. I'm looking. I'm still looking. He's not better than Rudy Gobert yet. Yeah, Victor Wembanyama at 6 is crazy to me. It really is. He's not a top 10 center in the NBA.
Just not yet. He could be, but he's not yet. And they don't have Anthony Davis on the list, bro. I don't understand that.
Yeah, so this list, I don't get how you have Domantas Sabonis who plays power forward, not center, but you don't have Anthony Davis. To your point, I think Victor Wembanyama at 6 is a fucking joke, by the way. And I love HoopsHype. HoopsHype is one of my favorite basketball websites to read articles or to get news. I love HoopsHype, but they're tripping on this. They're absolutely tripping.
I love HoopsHype. I used to be a contributor when I was 12, 13 years old on their forums. I loved their forums pages. They were the best, in my opinion, for basketball discussion, dude. I loved HoopsHype. I still love HoopsHype. Dude, I was kind of shocked, though, at Miles Turner, man. The season he had last year, I did not know. He had an 18-8 with 2 blocks. Dude, he had a great it's a solid season, man.
He carried my fantasy team last year. I could count on him for a couple blocks, some threes, and some rebounds. Miles Turner is goated in terms of fantasy basketball. Love me some Miles Turner. But with that list, I don't think that I like Wendell Carter Jr., who I think is a really great player. I probably would have had him a little bit higher on the list, but you can't tell me that Jalen Duren is not a top 24 center right now with the season he had. I just have a hard time when I'm looking at the players on this list, man. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Yes, he didn't play all the games that he started. Yes, he did hit kind of a rookie wall later in the season, but even Steven Adams at 24 kind of seems disrespectful. Yeah, even though he doesn't put up the stats that he used to, he's still one of the best centers, in my opinion, that can set a pick. He's probably one of the most elite when you're just talking about pick and roll. Steven Adams is probably one of the best in the NBA. Steven Adams at 24, to me, I think is kind of a joke. Al Horford at 23, really? The season he had with the Boston Celtics, I don't get that. Robert Williams,
you think it's too high? Celtics.
I think Al Horford should at least be a top 15 center in the discussion. Like, I don't get it.
And I agree. That's why I was wondering about the criteria, because Al Horford contributes to winning. Steven Adams makes the Memphis Grizzlies a much better team when he's on the floor. The only reason I would say I'm not disappointed that Duren didn't make the list, because it was an 8-8 season. You know, I mean, if he didn't, it was fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love Duren, man. And it's just, like Walker Kessler, he stood out defensively as a shot blocker. You know, he was, I think, 4th in the NBA. And I think he shot 72% around the rim. He was a lead in 2 categories, being touch around the rim and shot blocking. Duren did not, he provided good percentages and he intimidated a few people, but in my opinion, he really wasn't elite in any one area. So I could see why they excluded him. But I am with you. I think he's one of the 24 best centers, because there are guys, if you look at this list and you say, yeah, I would take Jalen Duren over this guy, then he's a top 24 center. You know, there are guys on this list where I'm like, I want to take them over Jalen Duren.
Like Kevon Looney, for example, he's at 21. Okay. I love me some Kevon Looney. You know that?
Yeah.
But he averaged 7 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists a game. When he shot 63% from the field.
He did play all 2 games.
Yeah, he did. But I would put Jalen Duren at 21.
I would even move everybody up and have him at least 24. You know, I mean, I guess the thing with Kevon Looney is, how good would he be on any other team? Is he just a good player in the Warriors system? But then if that's the case, then why is he on this list? Because I feel like the other guys, you could say they could be on any team and still contribute, but I don't know if you could really say the same thing about Kevon Looney.
Kevon Looney could contribute wherever he goes, but it's like that's my whole reason with the list. I'm not calling for Jalen Duren to be top 10 or anything like that. I'm not. But like, you're saying to me that you don't believe that Jalen Duren isn't a top 21 center in the NBA. Like, if the roles were reversed and Jalen Duren was in Golden State, he probably would put up the same stats, if not more. You know?
Yeah.
No disrespect to Kevon Looney. Excellent basketball player. Perfect glue guy for the Golden State Warriors. But, like, come on, man. Like, some of these lists, man, I just look at it and it actually pisses me off as a basketball fan. I've posted some of them on Facebook and they've gone viral. Like, there was one where Victor Wembanyama was like number 1 and people are like, bro, how? Hasn't even played a game yet.
And that's why I think giving the criteria for making these lists is so important. And I just want to point out Robert Williams. I love Time Lord. I think he's a good defender. He's not much of more of a shot blocker, not really a guy that can switch or anything like that. But and he's very limited offensively. He only played 35 games. Jalen Duren, he played over 60. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the argument I would make. I'm not taking a center, and I wouldn't say he's one of the 24 best if he only plays 35 games a season. And Robert Williams has been hurt quite a bit in the NBA. Like, he's not a healthy player. So, but he's only giving you 8 and 8, and then you just traded him too. So Boston probably viewed him a little bit lower than, maybe HoopsHype does on their list. I don't know. I agree with you. I do think Duren is a top 24 center, and I think you can make a case for him over a handful of these guys on this list. But at the same time, I guess if you're going to keep the rookies on there, it makes sense why you have Duren off. But you can make an argument for him to be on this list.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Sengun, who I think is going to be, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with Sengun, because I think they're going to try to use him like Sabonis in Houston. Like, he's 13, and he had a great season this past season.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with Jalen Duren this year. I know we're not going to, because we saw the chemistry start to build, and I told you, once they have that USA select camp, they're going to come into training camp which is, I guess, not tomorrow, but Tuesday. I mean, we're probably going to see some clips from, beat reporters this week of Cages throwing lobs at Duren like crazy.
Man, I can't wait. I really can't wait. I hope like Duran, I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that he contributes to. Is there a part of you that wants to see him in the dunk contest, just knowing how athletic he is?
No, because I saw Andre Drummond in the dunk contest, and that's the last time I ever want to see a center in a dunk contest for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I guess I'm also kind of surprised because weren't there reports where Victor Wembanyama was not going to play center? He's going to play the 4 in the NBA. They were going to have Zach Collins play the 5.
That's what he wanted, but we'll see.
Because I think there was a report maybe like a month and a half ago where it said Zach Collins will be a starter for the Spurs alongside Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really pay too much attention to San Antonio stuff. The little time that I do pay attention to national media, it's usually just funny stuff like the Heat not getting Damian Lillard, which we haven't even talked about, which is wild.
Well, we could. I mean, give me a second. So speaking of the Portland trade, Damian Lillard, they changed the hands on the clock. Let's just say that. Dame time is no more in Portland, and it's now the youth movement. And we're not going to talk about Dame on this podcast, but we are going to mention that the trade went through. But it leaves one player with an uncertain future in Portland, and that is Jerami Grant. 6'9" forward, known for his defense. But since he left Denver, he has emerged as a consistent offensive threat, putting, I think, 24 points per game up for the Detroit Pistons in a really bad year. But he's a guy who can ISO. He can cut to the basket. He can spot up, relocate along the perimeter. He might be available. And I know how some Pistons fans feel about him, but would you bring Jerami Grant back to the Detroit Pistons?
I'll give you 2 words. Hell no.
I thought you were going to say no way, but yeah.
Jerami Grant, can you tell the people what he signed for this summer?
Oh, I'm about to pull this up because you have me. Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me. It's, 160? I'm just going to do it off the top of my head. I think it's 160, but I'm going to look it up right here. His contract, 5-year, $160 million. He is 29 years old. This contract goes into effect, I believe, this year, right? I'm trying to pull up Spot Track here. Here we go. 5-year, $160 million contract goes into effect this year. No, this is the last year of his original deal. Goes into effect next year where he'll be making $29.7 million. And he has a player option for $36 million, but it will come off the books in 27. Basically comes out off the books in 28, 29 season. So for 27 and 28, he'll be 33 years old. He'll be making $36 million a year.
I would rather eat a piece of paper crumpled up than trade for Jerami Grant at $160 million on that extension. That is one of the worst contracts in the NBA right now. And I know he's a productive player, but it's similar to when Philly gave Tobias Harris the bag. And Philly's been trying to get off of that ever since they gave it to him. And I know the salary cap's going up, but there's no way in hell, if I'm a Pistons fan, that I would want to bring Jerami Grant back to the Detroit Pistons. Now, Portland's got to wait to trade him. They have to wait, I believe, until December or January because he did sign that extension. Those are the NBA rules. But no, I don't want Jerami Grant at $160 million over the next couple of seasons. I feel like a broken record, man. Like, do you want to extend Cade Cunningham on a rookie extension?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to extend Jalen Duren?
Yes, sir.
What about Jaden Ivey?
Of course.
That 160 would get in the way of that.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to clear it up. The extension does go into effect this year. He'll be making $27.5 million. You were right on the trade. He cannot be traded until December 15th of 2023. And the player option is for 27-28. And he's picking that up. I do not want to swear, but what the hell was the Portland Trailblazers? What were they thinking signing him to that when they knew Damian Lillard? I mean, I know he signed the contract before the news broke, but dude, Damian Lillard is we kind of already all knew it was ending this season, that he would no longer be in Trailblazers. I have no idea what Portland was doing signing. He's a good player though, but he's just it's the first 3 years of the contract are 20% of your salary cap. I mean, dude, $27 million a year. That's like at best, that's third option money for a pretty good team, but I don't even know what contender would want him at that money, you know? And I mean, he's a two-way player. He's a really good, I mean, he is a good defender. I mean, great size for either forward position. He's, like I said, he can take you ISO. He can shoot the 3-ball, whether he's spotting up or relocating. He can attack the basket, move without the ball. He really does have a complete bag offensively. He's just not an elite offensive player, but he is a very good defensive player. I mean, oh, man, that's just a lot of money, dude. Yeah, I don't.
I do want to say, because we do have a Blazer fan in here right now. Rip LaMarcus. So Jerami Grant was always going to sign that extension.
Oh yeah.
I think that's something that he wanted to get done, and I think the Blazers were going to honor that regardless whether they were going to trade Dame or not. And I think the Blazers wanted to keep him because he's a good player. Don't get me wrong.
He is.
I just don't think if you were to trade for him, if you're Detroit, you're probably going to have to give up some assets to get him. You're not going to get him for second-round picks. You're not going to get him for a bargain. No, I'll just say that. I watched the Jerami Grant experience when it was the COVID season with Blake Griffin for a couple of games and Derrick Rose, and Jerami Grant was kind of the number one option on this team. I just don't think he's a player that you tell me, okay, we got Jerami Grant. Do you believe if he was on this team right now, he can get to the Pistons to an Eastern Conference Finals?
Maybe not this year, but I do think Jerami Grant, with the evolution in his offensive game, and you combine that with the way he played defense. I mean, he was a hell of a contributor for the Denver Nuggets. I still think if he was on the Denver Nuggets, they still win the championship with Jerami Grant, even if they didn't have Aaron Gordon. You know, and Aaron Gordon was a huge contributor to them. But Jerami Grant can play defense like that. He's a Swiss Army knife defensively. If the Pistons weren't so young, like he might be a missing piece to an Eastern Conference Finals for the Pistons. Yeah. Not this year, maybe not even the following year, but maybe like 3 seasons from now. Like this version of Jerami Grant, the 19, 20 per game, 20 a game, the solid defense, that type of stuff, yeah, that could contribute to winning. But right now, no.
Yeah, I think when you look at Jerami Grant, I always think of him as a number 3 option on a good team. Like when he was on the Nuggets, he was always like that 3rd, 4th option. And that's fine. I don't expect every player to be the number 1 option. And I know salary cap has gone up. I do. I just think when the Pistons are ready to contend and they have cap space to spend, or maybe they have more assets, I think there are going to be better players available than Jerami Grant. I really do. This might be a pipe dream, and I might be crazy for saying this, but I wouldn't bank on the Clippers keeping Kawhi Leonard and Paul George long term. If they can't win. I know the Pistons don't have the assets yet, and they're still an incredibly young team, but like you said, maybe 3-4 years down the line, maybe they need a veteran like that. Who would you rather have, Jerami Grant or Paul George?
3 years from now, how old will Paul George be? I got to look this up. I just want to see Paul George's age 3 years from now. Ooh, he'll be 35 3 years from now. Paul George will be. And Jerami Grant will be, he's 29. He'll be 30. We'll just say 32. I mean, That'd be tough to say. I wish I had a crystal ball in front of me to tell you who'd be the better player. It would probably point to Paul George being the better player even 3 years from now. But again, he'll still be 35.
I'm like I said, I'm not saying the Pistons are going to get Paul George, but like I think there will be better players around the NBA within a couple of seasons that they can acquire via trade or maybe free agency. I like Jerami while he was here in Detroit. I think he did his thing here. Obviously, we did trade him, so we could get Jalen Duren and pieces like that. But I don't think the Troy Weaver would bring him back. I just don't. I think if you have Ausar and he emerges as a player, he emerges as a two-way player, there's no need for Jerami Grant on this basketball team. That's my thing.
Yeah, but man, imagine like Ausar defensively and Jerami Grant defensively at those 3 and 4, interchangeable, switching with Cade and Jaden Ivey in the backcourt. Maybe they each take a leap defensively, and then Duren just roaming the paint, looking to block shots. It's kind of filthy. It's pretty nasty. I don't know, maybe, but there's also isn't there just a small piece of you though that thinks Jerami Grant could come back? Maybe not this year. We'll just forget this year. That Jerami Grant could come back soon because of his relationship with Troy Weaver and his relationship with the city of Detroit. Because
I don't know. It's just
it seems like the writing's on the wall that he'll eventually return to Detroit.
I know he started to figure it out with Cade Cunningham towards the end, but I just remember the isolation ball and him not passing the basketball. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I think he got a lot better when he was in Detroit,
but 3 years from now, Jerami Granson might not be doing isolation. He might be like, all right, I'm giving that up. It's still in my bag, but I'm ready to be a team player again, and I'm ready to play defense.
I just wish, like, as Pistons fans, we would stop doing this. because I see Pistons fans like, oh, like, it was this summer, like, should we go get Chris Middleton? And it's just like, I don't know. Like, he would fit, but like, you don't really know what long term it would be like. My only thing is, then I said it a little while ago, is I think there are going to be better players around when the Pistons are ready to take that next step, that next leap.
I mean, honestly though, I think I would bring back Jerami Grant before I bring back Chris Middleton, just because of the age thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the season's going to tell you what direction the team's going to go in, and I think it's going to be a positive direction. I don't think you'll ever see a 17-win season as long as Cade Cunningham is healthy on the floor. But I have a lot of faith in Ausar Thompson. I think if Ausar Thompson can put it all together, we're not going to have conversations like this. We're not going to say, hey, should we go get this wing because he used to play for the Pistons, or should we go get this wing? I think Ausar Thompson is going to alleviate a lot of Pistons fans. I don't want to say like pipe dreams to try to get like that superstar wing, because I think Ausar has all the makings to be a two-way wing. And I really believe in the jump shot. I think it'll translate to the next level. I don't think he's going to, come in to the NBA shooting like 40% from three. But I think he's just going to be a guy that's extremely active out there and really help the Pistons on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that's why Troy drafted him. And I think he's going to make an immediate impact too. And I know we don't really have like someone said it earlier in the podcast, saying like, we don't have a true 3-and-D wing. We have wings, but they either can shoot threes or they just play defense.
Yeah.
And I think Ausar has the potential to be that guy that you develop to be that 3-and-D wing. And I know a lot of people want to name. They're like, oh, who should we go get? Who are we going to go get in a few years? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But I will say, I think the Pistons could potentially do better than Jerami Grant if they start winning basketball games and they start making the playoffs. I think they can get a guy maybe a little bit younger on the come up that maybe we're not really talking about right now. You never know. Like maybe Brandon Ingram. Maybe it doesn't work out in New Orleans. I don't know. Because I know people want a name. They just want a name. Maybe a Pascal Siakam. I don't know. I'm just spitballing right now. I'm tired of shit. Maybe I'm not making sense.
Okay, final question before we move on. In a 2014 redraft, where does Jerami Grant go? Top 5 or top 10?
You're gonna make me look up the 2014 NBA draft. Hold on.
You could just say either top 5 or top 10. I'll just give you a look.
Well, I gotta look at the NBA draft now. You're gonna make me look. Let's see. Oh, that was a shit draft. Holy crap. Half of these guys aren't even in the league anymore.
Yeah, but you got Joel Embiid is de facto number 1. Andrew Wiggins is probably number 2. Then you probably got Julius Randle or Aaron Gordon at number 3. Your 3 and 4s. Marcus Smart, he might round out the top 5. But then you got other guys like, Zach LaVine. No, he probably goes.
Yeah, Zach LaVine's top 5.
Yeah, Zach LaVine's he probably goes number 3 for me behind Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins. And then it would be Julius Randle and Aaron Gordon at 4 and 5. Yeah, I'll say Jerami Grant goes top 10 in a redraft.
Where did he even go? The
second round, 39th overall to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, look at that. Joe Harris went second round too.
Oh, what am I talking about? Nikola
Jokic, yeah.
Yeah, he goes number 1. What the hell am I talking about? He goes number 1. Joel Embiid goes number 2. Zach LaVine goes number 4. Andrew Wiggins goes number 3. But still, Jerami Grant goes top 10.
Yeah, he goes top 10. I don't know, man. I don't hate Jerami Grant because I know some people will probably say I do after like all my comments about it. Like, I don't hate him. I just want I just want a fresh face. Maybe I should have let off with that. Like, I don't like if you said, if I could bring back a former Piston, like I don't want to bring back a former Piston. Like, give me someone new to watch. Give me someone new to root for. Like, the Jerami Grant era was miserable. I think we can both agree there. Like, the only memory I really have of him is, going off against the Lakers, even though we still lost that game.
Yeah,
I don't really have a lot of positive Jerami Grant moments here in Detroit. And I get we're a rebuilding team and it was a weird season because COVID was going on, but I don't know. Maybe the Pistons can do better. But hey, maybe they bring him back. Maybe I'm completely wrong and I look like a fucking idiot.
No, it's okay. We don't know what Troy can do. We don't know. But I mean, we can just move on. Let's talk about Joe Dumars here for a second. Let me just preface this by saying his hands were tied by the Davidson family. They wanted him to still have a team that could win because they were trying to sell it, but they also tied his hands in a way where they said, don't spend too much money, but still build us a winner. But what would you, and we could even have some comments from the people watching right now, but what would you have wanted Joe Dumars to do at the end of his tenure to prevent the Pistons from being a mediocre team? I know we got to kind of think about this a little harder because I don't have pulled up. One thing I would say is not sign Rip Hamilton to the extension. Not because I'm a Rip Hamilton hater, just because he was a little bit older and you had just traded Chauncey Billups. I believe the extension actually came before the Chauncey Billups trade, but it was reported after the Chauncey Billups trade. But you broke up the backcourt and then you signed him hoping Rodney Stuckey and him could duplicate it, I guess. I guess my biggest thing with Joe Dumars, I would have loved to see him trade off the veterans while they still had value and start the rebuild. Forget what the people were asking him to do, but just, start the rebuild instead of signing guys to large contracts and trying to still compete when we knew that window was closed.
So it's very hard for me to speak negatively of the guy because he brought the team 3 championships, 2 as a player and 1 as a GM. I think a lot of people would probably say Darko. Because if you look at it from that standpoint, if they don't draft Milicic, they could draft Bosh, they could draft Melo, they could draft Wade. Whole team outlook could be completely different perspective-wise. But I'm not going to say Darko. I'm going towards the tail end of his tenure. when Tom Gores bought the team, not the Davidsons. I felt like he started to rebuild the team. He got Greg Monroe. He got Andre Drummond. He drafted Brandon Knight. And it seemed like he was starting kind of like what Troy Weaver did. You know, he drafts Killian, Sadiq, and Isaiah all in the same draft. Like Joe was starting to rebuild the team through the draft. But I think the big thing that it was a gamble, and obviously it didn't work, is you traded a guy in the second round in Chris Middleton that had some potential for Brandon Jennings, who was a high lottery pick, and it did work out in the short term, but obviously the Achilles injury really set his career back, and he was never the same player. I thought that trade was premature. I thought going all in for Josh Smith was a big mistake because the way they used Josh Smith made no sense, trying to make him into a three-point shooter when that wasn't really his strength. He was better as a slasher and just, kind of playing in the post a little bit. But I just think Tom Gores really was trying to force him out of the Pistons front office, and obviously he brings in Van Gundy, and that was a whole separate mess. But I think towards the end of his tenure, he tried to rebuild the Pistons, and he made some good draft choices. I mean, Chris Middleton, I think, is probably one of the best second round draft picks the Pistons have made in several years.
But
who knows? I mean, like, you could have a backcourt of like a Brandon Knight, Chris Middleton, and you have Andre Drummond and Greg Monroe as a backup. Like, that was a solid core that he was building, but obviously, Tom Gores wanted to win, and you make panic moves and you trade your young core for a top 10 pick that obviously had potential, but he just couldn't stay. He had a freak injury, and he was never the same player, and I think that kind of set the franchise back another 5 to 6 years.
I mean, there's just questionable moves all across the board, but I think if you had traded off the veterans, you might have not been drafting 8th or late lottery in some of these drafts. You might have had a chance at some different actual franchise player. Like, if they had been worse, I know they were only a 27-win team before they drafted Greg Monroe, and I got to look at his draft real quick, but I believe DeMarcus Cousins was in this draft, right? The Greg Monroe draft.
I could look.
I got to look this up. It was the 2010 draft. They drafted Greg Monroe 7th overall. Yeah, DeMarcus Cousins went 5th. I think if you had, it sounds crazy because they were only a 27-win team, but if you had traded off some of those veterans, it's so hard to say, man. I felt like the rebuild could have been started a little sooner, and you might have been looking at some other guys that he could have drafted. Maybe he felt like Greg Monroe was the best at number 7 and he missed out on DeMarcus Cousins. But if you had been a little worse, maybe you had been in play. I'm not saying DeMarcus Cousins changed the franchise around, but I mean, who knows? You bring back Ben Wallace and you have a tough guy teaching him. His career might have been a little different in this. We might not be talking about what we're talking about today. I think there were just too many mistakes by Joe Dumars towards the end. And I know his hands were tied before Tom Gores got there, before the Pistons were sold, and he really could only do so many things. But, man, you look back and you're like, damn, dude, if he had just done things a little differently, we wouldn't have been mediocre for so long. And I get it. When you're a GM, you want to continue to try to win, but sometimes you have to throw in the towel and just say, let's restart. And I felt like that restart button came a little too late in his tenure.
Yeah, I thought the Davison passing was definitely a handcuff. I know there's a lot of people. Eric had a great point. He thought it was the 2009 offseason with Ben Gordon, Charlie V, and Austin Day. That's when it all went downhill. Love Joe, but that was terrible. Then Josh Smith, yikes. 100% agree with that. We had another comment from Mega Hustle. It's another one. He said Joe messed it up when he didn't pull the trigger on the Ben Wallace and Rasheed trade for Kevin Garnett in 2008. That would have been interesting.
Dude, I thought another interesting one was bringing in Flip Saunders. I mean, like, dude, I know he's not a terrible coach, but he was not the right coach for Ben Wallace at all. Like, he was more of an offensive-minded coach. And I remember watching them, and I remember thinking, like, the way they were using Ben Wallace, it just seemed like he lost his voice. He lost his identity with that team, and I felt like they should have brought in a defensive-minded coach similar to a Larry Brown, and maybe things would have been differently. I think that was kind of the domino effect. I know you had a good team, and Flip Saunders got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he won a lot of games with the Pistons, but it was a really good roster. I just felt like he just was not the best fit. And, man, kudos to saying Austin Day, because I'm looking back at his draft. I know he was taken 15th overall, but if you needed someone to replace Chauncey Billups, and I'm looking at some of the names, dude, Drew Holiday, Ty Lawson, Jeff Teague, Darren Collison. If you had gone the direction of a point guard with Rodney Stuckey in the backcourt, I don't know, maybe we're not as mediocre as we were for so many years. And I hate looking back at drafts like that, but I mean, I do not know what you were thinking drafting Austin Day. I remember some people saying he might have been the next Kevin Durant, but like outside of being 6'11" and skinny, he was not Kevin Durant. And this team had a glaring hole at the point guard position. I'm sorry. Ronnie Stuckey was a combo guard. I've said it before. If you keep Chauncey Billups and trade Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups and Ronnie Stuckey, that's a much better backcourt than Ronnie Stuckey and Rip Hamilton. And love Joe Dumars, but man, there were so many questionable moves that he made, and it just sucks. I'm glad people contributing though.
Yeah, like I hate going down like that road because I think Joe's biggest flaw was drafting. It seemed like when he hit on a player, he hit on it, but when he missed, man, he missed. Like he swung for the fences on some prospects, and it didn't work. Like I thought the Tayshaun pick was excellent. You got a lot of value there with him because you got him pretty late in the first round or mid first round, but like
2 overall.
Yeah, there's some players like you could have had Kemba Walker, but you picked Brandon Knight. I believe so. Was Kemba, or I don't remember in 2011. Was Kemba 9th?
I'm looking for you right now. Yeah, Kemba Walker. He was right after Brandon Knight.
Yeah, like Kemba Walker. If you had a Kemba Walker and Andre Drummond when they were both healthy, like they're probably winning a playoff series.
Yeah, that's 2 solid building blocks.
Yeah,
dude. I mean, yeah, it was weird. Like at the top of the draft, he was kind of terrible. I mean, he kind of was, but like late in the first round, like Tayshaun Prince, Carlos Delfino in the second round, Okur, Jonas Jerebko was solid. Jason Maxiell was a decent role player for a while, but dude, you put him in like the top 10, and it's just questionable picks. I mean, I don't even think the Brandon Knight pick was that bad. I just don't think the roster was really set up for Brandon Knight to really succeed, you know? And then you just flip him for Brandon Jennings, like what, the next season? And it's just, I don't know, too many weird decisions. I don't even know if that was that did that though.
Yeah, it was right before Van Gundy. It was so weird because I'll say this and then we can move on to Q&A, or if we do have another topic, I don't remember. But
no, we can Q&A.
Do you remember Maurice Cheeks?
Yeah.
So Joe Dumars hires Maurice Cheeks, which, you know, he's a legend in Philly, and Maurice Cheeks was doing an okay job with the Pistons, and Tom Gores fired him. And I was like, why are you firing him? Like he's doing the best he can with what he has. And it's just like, I think that's the point where Joe Dumars was just like, you know what? Like I have no say here anymore. And Tom Gores is just like making all these executive moves. Like trading for Brandon Jennings, I thought was a swing, and it worked. And it worked. Like I said earlier, it worked. But, you know, the Achilles was never the same when he came back.
He was, I mean, he's terribly inefficient, dude. Let's just not, we can't, I loved Brandon Jennings. I have his 55-point game in Milwaukee still on my phone. Like that was, I loved Brandon Jennings, dude. The dude was, I might have just said Brandon Knight, but I loved Brandon Jennings in Milwaukee, but I think he shot like 38% from the field. I remember people talking about him being a future all-star, and I'm like, dude, there's no way this dude's an all-star. All-star game, just not all-star efficiency. I mean, even signing Michael Curry as the head coach, but then flipping Chauncey Billups for Allen Iverson, it's like, dude, you have a rookie head coach, and you're breaking up the core, the stability of this team, and you're just giving him somewhat of a knucklehead in Allen Iverson, even though he is a great player. He was a difficult person to coach. I mean, a lot of coaches have said that, and you're bringing him in with a rookie coach who I don't know how Michael Curry's career would have turned out if you had kept Chauncey Billups or not, but it was just weird mistake after mistake after mistake with Joe Dumars. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, he's got my respect, and I think he deserves a statue down at LCA. Getting 3 championships for this franchise that we both love because we talk Pistons every week. I think him and Isaiah Thomas deserve statues down at LCA. That's just my 2 cents on it.
I will say, you give me a Joe Dumars statue, but it's that picture of him holding the 2 phones. That's what it has to be.
Oh, that would be legendary.
That's what
I just hope I've seen a lot of statues lately, and some of them look really bad.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, what would you even do for an Isaiah Thomas statue?
Oh, it's got to be him holding the NBA championship.
See, I want him waving the towel. That'd be cool.
I don't know. Chris Ilitch is a cheap bastard, though. He doesn't want that inside his building.
It's going to be made out of Legos.
No, it's just he wasn't like. I know this is off topic. Like Ilitch wasn't even there for Miggy's last game today.
Ooh, we didn't even talk about that, man. Like, I wish I had memories of Miguel Cabrera, but I'm not really much of a I didn't really watch a lot of the Tigers during his time. I know he was a great player, but I think he did have the Triple Crown. Did he have it twice?
I think he had it once. I don't follow baseball like I used to, but I'm happy the Tigers finished off strong.
Same. Oh, dude, Spencer Torkelson in 30 home runs. Oh, incredible, man. I think he's the first Tiger since I don't know who the last guy was to have. I don't even want to throw out a name, but I think he's the first Tiger since like 2009 to be drafted by the team to have 30 or more home runs in a season. Him and Riley Green, dude, those are some bats, bro. Can't wait.
Yeah,
I go to, but I don't watch on TV.
Yeah, I mean, future is bright for Detroit sports for sure. Looks like the Red Wings just kicked the Hawks at 6-1, so that's always good when you beat a Chicago team. The Bears, and we're talking like all sports. The Bears choked. They were up big and they lost to the Broncos, so the Bears are 0-4. Lions won. They beat the shit out of Green Bay this week, which is good to see. Yeah, that was good to see.
I had 2 people in the barbershop tell me one guy said he was bored with the Detroit Lions game because it wasn't a close game. I'm like, whoa. You know how many boring Lions games I've watched where they just got their asses handed to them?
Yeah, he sounds like a
boring game.
He sounds like a sicko.
Then the second guy told me he was annoyed with Lions fans. Dude, we haven't had a winning season in forever. Yeah. And you're already annoyed with Lions fans? Bro, give us a break. Let us be annoying for at least a season, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm happy for Lions fans because they've gone through it more than anybody else.
Yes.
But I'm not annoyed. Like, I thought the game was fun. I love seeing Jordan Love throw bad passes and get sacked all game. Yeah, like I loved it. But we will do Q&A for a little bit, not too long, because I do have to get some stuff done tomorrow because I may be going to media day. I may not. I don't know yet. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm still waiting on a text from Pistons PR to see if I can go or not. But we got a question from Bravo. He asked, why do you think Troy is still keeping Killian? And is there a plan to keep him long?
I don't think anybody else wants him. And they're just kind of tied until that contract is up. No, I don't think there's a plan to keep him long. I think there's like a part of all Pistons fans where we're kind of like, I don't want to get rid of Killian Hayes because he might turn out to be something. I don't care if he turns out to be anything. I'm okay with him not being on the Pistons because I am one of those few that does not think he's going to be a long-term NBA player. I predicted Seiko wouldn't even play 7 years in the NBA. He was out in like 4. Killian Hayes, I'd be shocked if he made it to 8 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I mean, unless something drastically changes in him, he's not going to be here for a long time. And I just think the only reason, again, why he's on the Detroit Pistons, nobody wants him. Nobody wants to make a trade for Killian Hayes.
Yeah, I would say to Bravo's question, why do you think Troy is still keeping Killian? You never know when there's going to be an injury throughout the season. And even though I do like Marcus Sasser, I don't know if they would put him long term in at a backup point guard spot. I think he's just going to play in between a point guard and a shooting guard throughout the season because he's versatile like that. So that, to answer your first question, Bravo, I think if Killian's your third string point guard, cool. Not, I don't know. Is there a plan to keep him long? If there was a plan to keep him long term, Bravo, he would have got an extension this summer. He was extension eligible. He didn't get an extension. The 3 Pistons that got drafted, I'll drop a little knowledge on you right now. Isaiah Stewart got extended. Sadiq Bey didn't get extended. He was extension eligible. And Killian Hayes was extension eligible, and he didn't get extended. So if you would have told me Isaiah Stewart would get a contract extension before Sadiq Bey, I probably would have laughed at you because I was really high on him. But just to answer your question, I don't think there's long-term plans to keep him on this team. I think they're just giving him one more chance this season to prove himself. And if he can, maybe they do give him a contract extension to stay on this team. But I don't know what his plans are, Bravo. I really don't. I think if he's your third string backup point guard, you're doing okay.
Well, James Wiseman also didn't get extended.
Yeah.
He was a part of that
draft. It's still such a weird trade to me, but
yeah.
We got a question from Michael Powell. He said, do you think Marcus Sasser will spend some time in the G League this season? That's so funny. We actually talked about this a couple months ago.
Yeah. Last time I predicted a rookie to play in the G League and to start the season, they made me eat my words, and they played fantastic. That was Jalen Duren. So I'm going to go ahead and say it again. Yes, I think Marcus Sasser will spend some time in the G League at the beginning of the season. I think he'll spend his time between both teams just because I think the Pistons they're deeper at the guard position than they have been in the last few years with Cade, Ivy, Morris, and Burks. Those guys are going to get the bulk of the minutes. I don't see where Marcus Sasser fits in that equation with those 4 guys already getting them. And even like Asar Thompson, he could get some minutes at the 2 spot as well. But anyways, I just don't see where Marcus Sasser fits in other than garbage time. Now, if the Pistons are out of play-in contention around the All-Star break, that's when I think you'll start to see Marcus Sasser get some serious playing time with the Detroit Pistons. But I think for the majority of the season, he'll be splitting his time between the G League and he'll be splitting time with the G League and the Detroit Pistons.
So I had that opinion earlier when we had this topic a couple of months ago, but seeing how active the Motor City Crews have been this summer, I don't think Sasser's going to spend any time in the G League.
Ooh, okay.
They made a lot of trades to where Xavier Simpson is probably going to get a lot of burn as your point guard for the Crews. And then you also have 2-way guys like Malcolm Casalone, who's going to be playing shooting guard down there, sharing time with Buddy Boeheim and guys like that. I think Sasser will be on the Detroit Pistons bench all season long. I just don't see them sending him down to the G League. I think he's going to get garbage time to start the season, But I think Coach Monty Williams really loves him a lot. He always speaks really positively about him. I don't think we'll see him in the G League at all. I think he's just going to ease him into that rotation. Maybe you give him maybe 5 minutes to start the season, and maybe towards All-Star break, he's up to 10, 11 minutes a game, because I think he's too good of a player to keep on the bench, because we've seen what he can do. Now, granted, it was the summer league, dropping 40 points. Those Rico Hines runs when he just blew past Jaden Ivey a couple of times. I think he's a player that is really going to help, the first unit compete, because when you're blowing by the starting shooting guard on your team, not once but twice, iron sharpens iron. So I know those practices are going to be very chippy between the two, because they're both competitors. But I think Sasser's going to be on this team. I just don't know how much minutes he's going to get night in and night out. But I think Monty will kind of ease him into it if he does decide to give him those minutes.
See, I was thinking 9 minutes to start the season, 9 minutes per game, and then after All-Star break, he'll move into like 15 to 17 minutes a game.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking. Like I already told you before, I think he was drafted not to replace Killian Hayes, but ultimately to replace Alec Burks.
Yeah, I mean, if he can take it over, 100% agree with you. So I think we both, how many wins predicting this season? I've said between 32 and 35. I think you've said like 34, I want to say.
I said 28 to 32.
Okay, 28 to 32. Yeah. I think we're kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah, because 32 would be a 15 game improvement. And I think that's where Monty Williams was with his first year with Phoenix. And they had a pretty young roster at the time as well. But they did have Devin Booker. He was pretty established already as who he was. But then you had Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, guys like that. So, he took a young team from being – I think Phoenix only won 19 games the year before, and then he improved them to 34. So I'm thinking similar improvement, about 15 games, as long as this team stays healthy.
Yeah. I still got 32 to 35. And I know it's a huge jump, but I really believe in this team if they stay healthy. And I think Monty Williams is just going to be a breath of fresh air for a lot of Pistons fans. Like the ball movement, that 0.5 offense, having so many former players on your coaching staff, like a Jarrett Jack, be on the bench, I think is going to be really huge for the guards on this team because he was such a smart and crafty player. Having former players like Mark Bryant get to work with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren every day. Like, I know a lot of people probably don't know who Mark Bryant is, but he's played with some of the, the best power forwards and centers of all time, like playing with Tim Duncan, playing with Hakeem Olajuwon, working in OKC with Serge Ibaka and Steven Adams. Like, I really like this coaching staff as a whole. And then you got guys like Dan Burke on the bench, who was just a defensive guru for those Pacers teams for all those years. Like, I think that's why I'm so high on this team, and I think they'll make that jump from like 17 to 32, 35 wins. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is a great question from Eric, and I don't really see his name too much. Open roster spot, who gets it?
Ooh, oh man. Do I got to pull up a list of free agents?
I don't even know if we have a preseason roster available yet. Let me see real quick. I know James Edwards wrote an article, but I don't know if he I meant to read it today, but I just got busy. Let's see. Oh, depth chart projections. That's just his depth chart. So I will say, who gets the open roster spot? I think they will convert Malcolm Kazalone's two-way to a roster spot.
Okay.
That's my take. Or, you could be cute and say Jonte Porter.
I was gonna say either Jonte Porter or Tossin E. Bauman. I don't even know if I'm saying his last name right, but kind of an underrated. He's a 6'8". He's kind of the similar build as Isaiah Livers. Smart player, can kind of provide that 3-and-D, but a good passer as well. I'm not saying he will get minutes for the Pistons, but it wouldn't surprise me because I think he was their first undrafted player that they signed, right? Like soon as the draft. Tossin out of Princeton.
Wasn't yeah. He was I want to say he was a training camp deal.
Yeah.
And then I think he's not a two-way player, is he?
No, that's why he's not a two-way player.
Okay.
He's just brought in, but he was the first guy after the draft that they signed to a training camp deal. And I think, you know what I'm saying? Like, he kind of fits what you're looking for in a 3 or a 4, I guess. But again, it's a steady, man, that's going to be a steep hill for him to climb. I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm just going to say Jonte Porter or Tossin, get that final spot of current guys that are on here. I don't know if anybody could just surprise them if they bring someone in like the next 48 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is an open roster spot. That's why I still feel there's a trade coming.
Yeah.
And I just don't know who it is. Like, if you trade someone, then you have some cap flexibility. That's why I did suggest the two-way player, the Frenchman. I can't think of his name already. Malcolm Gazalon, because I thought he had a pretty good summer league. He showed you the ability to defend, shoot a little bit, and pass.
And he was on the French national team, right? Like, he made it over Killian Hayes.
I don't know. No, I don't think he tried out for the team at all.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. I know some people are saying Hamidou Diallo.
Well, yeah, now that I don't know.
Yeah, Hamidou still hasn't signed anywhere. I thought he'd be good in Denver personally. Like, kind of just take that Bruce Brown role and just have Hamidou fill into that role. But Hami's out there. I don't know. It's a really great question, Eric. I don't know. I don't know if they would just want to roll with the SAR. And I said last week, just have a SAR play that Hamidou role this season. Just be, that energy guy, a cutter, being active. But I could be wrong. Maybe I do make a trade and they bring Hami back. They can't bring Magruder back anymore.
Yeah, I forgot he signed with
Golden State. Do you remember Klay Thompson talking shit about him?
Oh, yeah.
This guy's going to be out the league soon.
Who is he? Dude, how awkward is that? Like, their lunch meetings. They're just, like, sitting in the cafeteria. They're just staring at each other. Ronnie McGruder's like, I'll never forget what you said. I'm still here. Be terrible.
Taking your spot, bitch. No.
Dude.
I don't think Rodney's like that, though.
I don't think so at all. He's probably just happy to be there. He's probably carrying Klay Thompson's bag as we speak.
Okay, this is a really good comment, and then we can hang it up in a little bit. QT says, Oklahoma City Thunder have like 20 players and 15 roster spots. Pistons have the highest waiver spot to pick up whoever they drop. I forgot about that. The Pistons do have the highest, if there's I'll just use Josh Christopher as an example because he got waived by the Grizzlies. So the Pistons wanted to pick up Josh Christopher. They would automatically get him because they have the highest waiver spot to pick up.
Yeah, but I'm looking at their team. If they let go of Isaiah Joe, bring him in.
That name just would sell tickets.
Oh, that's perfect. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, Isaiah Joe.
Wasn't he one of the best shooters? Yeah, he shot 41% from 3 last year. A little undersized, 6'4", to be that shooting guard, but sweet stroke. Only 24.
Man, OKC's roster is the most random roster I've ever seen. Like, They have guys that I know are good, but then they also have guys I've never heard of.
They're going to Jack White. Yeah, who's this guy?
I don't know.
Oh, he played for Denver last year.
Appropriate for Denver. Let's see.
I think Jack White has a house in Michigan. The what band is he from? That's gonna bother me. Yes.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Stanley Amude makes the team. Who knows?
I think it's gonna be a guy bigger than him. I think it's gonna be one of the bigs.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know who's gonna make the team, but I think what QT said, there are a lot of talented players on training camp rosters right now. Maybe it's a player from the Jazz, for example, that, maybe we're not as high on, like the Jazz aren't as high on, but maybe, Troy Weaver is. You never really know. Like Christian Wood from a few years ago, Charlotte picked him up and no one knew who the hell he was, and he did really well. But that's just the name I'm using as an example. Like, there's a lot of talented guys that will probably be on the waiver wire. Let's see. Wow, I forgot they had Colin Sexton.
Oh, the Utah
man. Yeah. Man, they got a weird roster too.
I mean, I'm just looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I'm looking at Kenrich Williams. I think he's still on Oklahoma City. He might have been traded, though.
Utah's got to be the whitest team in the NBA.
Don't do that.
I'm just looking at all those players, man. They're white as shit.
Well, they got a certain demographic to appease in Utah.
Yeah, we can wrap up the podcast because I know someone will probably get offended by that comment.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. I said that, and someone's just like, "That's offensive." I was like, "How? It's true." Like, you don't like the truth, but why don't you tell the people where they can find the podcast and where they can rate it?
Well, before I do that, follow me on Twitter at Landscape Roast. You can also follow me on Threads, even though I don't post there at the same name. Do not send me an Instagram request. A few of you have, and I'm sorry, I will not accept it. But anyways, thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.